welcome to the International Business Conversations. My name is Dr. Arvind Lall, and today I am honored to have Arvind Lall, Chartered Accountant, as my guest. Arvind, hello. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, Reina. It's just so nice to catch up with you again because we knew each other through the University of Kent, and it's wonderful to be able to join you again. So yes, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a chartered accountant, but I've also been an academic for a number of years, and I've formulated modules. I've taught undergraduates and postgraduates at university, and I've also been a practitioner as a chartered accountant. So I've had a practice which I created myself after qualifying. The other bits which I think might be of interest is that I didn't have a business degree. I studied in the humanities, and so I had a degree in religious studies and ethics. So how did I become a chartered accountant? And we'll talk about all of that as time goes on. And I think the students might be quite interested because your international students might be thinking, well, what's accountancy got to do with me? Well, it's an easy one. Accountancy is a little bit of almost like a life skill, I think, in many ways at one level, and then you can become a professional. But you know, I use a lot of that also in academic life. So there's so many things you can do with accountancy, and it affects us all. So as we talk through, hopefully, we can draw a little bit of a storyline as we go through all of this.
Yes, indeed. My first question that I wanted to ask was about accounting and international business. What is accounting, and how the knowledge of accounting will help international business students?
Right. Well, accounting really it's got a long history, and you know, accounting can be used informally by anyone, whether you're an international student or anyone else. Well, informally, we use it every day as human beings. You know, we want to know we got enough money. Do we have enough stock of food? You know, we do so many things. But then when we get to university, you know, we have the options. Doesn't matter what your degree is, if you're doing international business, you still will have to have a job at some point in time. And you know, you will begin to learn formally how accounting works if you're doing say a module, an elective module. And the great advantage is that when you get a job, the chances are that you will be working for a business. And what happens with business is that the bottom line for business is that, you know, they do well, they make enough money to employ people, they can justify to their shareholders that they can run the business, you know. And so whether you're a person who is working in sales or HR or in purchasing or using languages or using economics, anything that you might do within your degree will have a relevance. And the advantage, if you have a bit of a background to accounting, there are twofold. Number one is you can begin to understand how your company works. It's just to read a simple statement, an annual statement. Accounts are produced once a year normally, a profit and loss account and a balance sheet to give you some ideas to how your company is doing. And of course, the other thing is if you want to promote yourself, one of the biggest insights you can have as an international student working in a business is to know what the bottom line and how people work towards the bottom line. So if you're a sales director, for example, you know, you can work with the managing director, you can work with the financial accountant to see that you can make your contribution. You don't have to have detailed knowledge, but you're part and parcel of that entity that you're working for. So it doesn't matter what your degree is, you know, if you're within the business environment, the bottom line is always pulled down from activity into numbers. And if you can understand those, you can begin to rise yourself within the company itself.
Wanted to ask you about accounting theory versus accounting practice. Can we please talk about this as well?
Yes, well, to understand accounting theory, we have to go back to basics. There's a whole history of this. What happens is informal accounting started back in Italy at the time of the Renaissance, when people had to keep accounts of how businesses were doing, how the church was doing as well. And so because they were educated, the monks, they were very theoretical type of people and said, well, look, why don't we make accounting just simple ways of recording something a bit more scientific? Okay. So the profession of accountant, for example, is highly scientific, highly legally organized. You have to learn a lot of law if you're training to be an accountant. Now, so people came up with theories and ideas, and like all academic thinking, there were abstract terms that they brought in. It was a kind of a philosophy of accounting. So what happens is you have the general theories at the back of your mind, which you try and apply in practice. Now, the theory is the wonderful world of perfection that we live in. But the real world of accounting, you have to understand how best to be able to navigate yourself with these lovely theories that we learn. So we can talk about maybe theories, some examples where theories have been used in very complicated ways to do things well, but also have been used in some ways which really, is not good practice and has created a lot of problems for people, because it's a kind of a philosophy that you can look at it this way or you can look at it that way. So there are theories in accounting that we can talk about. And one or two of them I can raise with you later on if you wish. And I can explain some of the theories and see how they actually have been applied. But if you want me to talk about those, I can do those now. Or maybe we can do that later.
We can talk about it now. I think it's a good
Okay.
time to
Well,
talk about some of the theories within this question about
okay.
accounting theory versus accounting
Okay. So
practice.
let's try and simplify a very complex organism. Shall we try and simplify it? Well, accounting isn't just about counting money. That's the first thing. Okay. It isn't what comes into your bank and goes out. Well, that's also important. This business is the same as any human being. What comes in goes out. Do we have enough to live on? And businesses work in the same way. Well, accountancy theory is another level around the money itself, the hard cash. And there are certain ideas. For example, there's something called the accruals concept, which means that once you have a transaction, you have to bring it into the accounts, whether you receive the money or not. So you can transact and say, well, I'm prepared to sell this amount of stuff to you, or a service or goods, okay? And that is the start of a transaction. You might get paid 3 months later, but this figure still has to come into your accounts as a sale. So the money comes in later, but it becomes a transaction. So that is the theory, okay? So you can bring in things from the outside which don't belong to cash at this point in time. That is one of the big theories, that we have to do that. And governments have said that we will accept those theoretical notions when we come to work out your taxes. So you may not have made as many profits because the money hasn't come in yet, but you're still paying tax on it, because that is a theory that we have to use in the accounts. And that has been prescribed by law, that you have to use that. So that all the profits come in later, but you still have transacted now. So you're responsible for your taxes on that amount of transaction without the money at this point in time. So the theory has put into practice, but it can become quite a complex way of looking at it. But people say, well, nothing has happened. Well, I'm afraid accounting theory is accepted all around the world, whether it's for international students to understand this, that there are certain international accounting standards which work in exactly the same way wherever you are. And that's one of the great things if people want to go into the profession, if you're an international student. Accounting is one of the great professions where you can actually work anywhere, and it's got its general theories, which people themselves will be able to, use once they've trained anywhere around the world. So it's a very flexible thing, but the theories are difficult to initially understand as a student, but more practice helps you get that. But they are something that really need to be understood, because you need to be able to understand it for yourself and explain it to other people, because it's part of your planning, it's part of your budget, that you have to be very clear that something can come in before the money arrives.
I think that for every student, whether studying international business or any business degree, or students who would like to start their own business, for example, or work for a company, understanding of accounting principles is fundamental. for
Absolutely,
understanding how
absolutely,
company runs.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in a way, I've had the benefit of all of those things. So for example, I had no idea when I first started what accounting was all about. I hadn't even thought about it as a career because I started my teaching, my working life as a teacher after leaving university. I had no idea, but I wanted to gain independence, and accounting gave me that. But I had no idea what accounting was all about. So I had to really learn. I mean, your students have got some idea of business. I had none when I first started. Well, none at all, you know. So it is something that has done me a lot of good. And it also, I can understand the world a little better. I can understand people, because I think accounting in a way is really at the end of the day about people, wherever you work in a business. It may translate that people activity into numbers in the end, but it is about activity. Unless it's an activity, there will not be a number. You know, it's activity raises all of this. We buy, we sell, we meet, we talk, you know, we create, and that then translates into numbers. So I found that for myself, starting off initially, I had to work with one of the big four companies, accounting firms, as a non-relevant graduate. They used to call me a non-relevant graduate because most people had economics or mathematics and so on. But that's the other thing, is you don't need to be a mathematician, which is good news, because even I could have done that. See, I could do that. So anyone can do it. But the point was that I wanted independence. I wanted freedom. And it gave me a great chance to meet people, to do things, to travel, you know. So there were lots of things that came out of it. But you can use it, as you rightly say, you can use it, you can work for someone. I mean, every company needs to have someone to do something in accounting, whether you do it professionally or you just learn the job. A lot of graduates just go in and train on the job, you know. Sometimes people move from sales to accounting because they want to climb up. And I'm afraid, you know, it's just a fact that accounting does help you, because that's the bottom line for all businesses. So you can work for someone. I mean, I use it even for teaching. So teaching is another career that came through. But for me, the final thing was being self-employed. So I wanted my independence. And so what I did was I trained with a very large firm, and then I created my own practice, a professional practice of chartered accountants. And I became the tax partner, and I took on other people who did accounting as well. So accounting is a combination of a lot of disciplines. That word accounting is not just counting, it's lots of other things. You know, you've got people with the large ones as economists, as statisticians, as accountants, as auditors, as tax people, as business planners. There are so many things that come out of accounting, because as I say, at the end of the day, it is about people. So for me, the self-employed thing was big, and this may give some people a chance, whether they train as a professional as I did and then went into business as self-employed, or you could start your own business. And if you have an insight into accounting, you could do anything. There are people, for example, students doing IT, they're setting up their little businesses, you know, but to have an insight into simple accounting is always very handy. I think, you know, it's something that I found very, very useful.
You mentioned before that you are a humanities graduate, and you also chartered accountant, and you also had a lectureship position in the past. Can you just maybe elaborate on this a bit more to tell those who will be watching this video about how did you arrive to being a chartered accountant, and then why did you go into teaching afterwards, keeping at the same time your practice?
Yes, well, the great thing is it kind of worked for me. So everyone is unique. You know, every student at university at the moment is unique. You have to find, you know, angles, things that you can do with your life. You know, use your degree to enhance you. You've got to sometimes find things that you would never think about doing, and that's kind of what happened to me, because I had no idea when I first started. I mean, what can you do with a degree in religious studies? I could go into the church, maybe. Okay, but there's not a lot of careers within the church. It may be something I could do as a vocation. You know, I could have gone into teaching, which is what I did to start with. I did postgraduate work, and then I went into teaching, and so on and so forth. But what happens there is, at that point in time in your life, you think, well, I work for someone, but you know, I know a lot of people who are doing their own things. Now, what can I do for myself? And you could open up a little business, or you could consider going into a profession, which is something that I considered. And I was actually going to train to be a barrister, because humanities degrees are great for going into the law. The difficulty was that to become a partner or to be self-employed and to have your own brass plate outside your office was not so easy with the law. And someone said to me, look, accounting is something that you may want to consider. So I said, well, I have no idea what accounting is all about, and they said, well, maybe you can find out. So I began to find out, and I went and saw people who worked in accounting. And at first I thought, oh, I can't do this because it's just not me. But then I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. If I could just do the qualification, then maybe I can set up my own practice. I don't have to work for anyone. And that's exactly what happened. And there's always going to be a need for accountants, because there will always be businesses. There will always be people who are looking for help. So it's one of these professions where, you will always have work. And so it was that independence. And when I first started, it wasn't easy. I had to get new clients. I could have just worked as a qualified accountant for a big firm, but I wanted to be independent and have my own little thing. So I started off by, setting myself up as self-employed, and gradually I built up my client basis. But I was also interested in the international link for my practice. For me, that was really crucial, because I love travel. I met meeting people. I like languages. I like so many things. And for me, accounting gave me a chance to do all these things. It wasn't just a job and the money. It was much more than that for me. It was a freedom. It was a freedom to meet people, to do things, to have your own money, to be able to spend it the way you like, to be able to go away and do what you want. I didn't have to ask anyone when I went on holiday. It was wonderful, to, to do all these things. So out of that innovation of finding the freedom, accounting gave me that freedom. And then I started being creative about my skills, and then I pulled on the international link of working with tax lawyers in Spain who needed people like myself, who are the smaller practitioners rather than the big firms, because the big ones are very expensive for people. So I started working with them, and that gave me quite a lot of good lifestyle, because I used to travel to Spain, meet people, and then come back to the UK and work for clients here. So I had clients there and here. So the international link was actually quite good, but that international bit came purely from my own interests as a person of people, so that's what created it. And it was quite successful for quite a few years. Of course, I don't do it anymore now, but whatever you do in life, whatever your degree is, you need to think beyond the degree and be creative about, because at the moment, the thing is, it's not so easy always to be able to find a job. And, accounting is something that maybe some students may want to consider in doing. It doesn't matter whether you've got an international business degree or anything else. So any degree would help, and the profession and business, not just the profession, businesses are looking out for good graduates. And they're looking out for graduates who will make a contribution. So if you go into a big company, an international company, you might be able to come up with ideas. So let me give you an example of a student of ours who went and worked for Disney, the big Disney company, the big Disney corporation. Now, that student was an international business student. And I went over to see them when they were working at Disney. Now, they were not like me, they were not numerate, they were not mathematicians, but they got very interested on working with their counterparts in Europe, because they were just interested in international business. Now, they used the little business skills that they picked up, and they set up a system for Disney working with counterparts in Europe. And when they finished the degree, they got a job in Disney. So you have to be innovative and creative and say, well, I've done this, but can I also do this with my degree? So, there are so many opportunities, I think, with international business, I think today, and the world has got international much more than when I was younger, so there are sort of huge areas that international business can open up, but you need to have an open mind to be able to get the best out of your degree.
In the current climate, we start to change the way we work, the way we learn. There are many new opportunities now available for us, and we didn't think about those opportunities before. So I think from my point of view, it's about learning, always learning something new and trying to find the way how to like what you do. Can you please provide an advice for current students who will be graduating this year or soon in this very unusual environment, unusual time?
Yes, I think one of the great things to remember is goes back to basics. We're all very privileged to be at university for a start. Okay, let's not forget the basics. We worked hard to get there. Your students have worked hard to get there. Okay, what has changed now is that you need to believe in yourself and to be innovative with your degree. Don't be boxed into just thinking, I can only do this. Okay. Now, the other thing that's happened now with the world today, the world is getting specialized. It's getting very, very specialized. Okay. Now, you don't actually have to be a member of a profession. You can still work within a company and develop that specialization within one area, for example, within a company itself. So I think, we start off by saying to ourselves, when we're at university, we don't really know what to do. Where do we go for guidance? What can I do with myself? I think you have to work with people who advise you, but you're the one who needs to come up with some interest that you have in working somewhere. Now, for example, I know someone who spent a number of years after university training to be an accountant, but she decided that she didn't want to do accounting. She wanted to work for a charity. So she gave it up, but she had the skills to work for the charity, And so she found in her life a bit later on something that she really wanted to do. Now, I did things a bit later on as well in life because I spent a number of years academically doing a number of things and teaching. And so for me, it was a case of I go along the road and do I see opportunities? So in my case, what had happened was that I'd trained, I saw an opportunity to make myself independent, which is what I did. I enjoyed working for myself, but then along the road, a number of years later, it was just purely by chance, someone asked me if I'd be interested in teaching at a university. I hadn't even thought about that, but it was an opportunity, and it was an opportunity that I wanted to take up. And it was wonderful for me to then go into the university and enjoy what I did and also maybe help the students. So things can arise as you go down the road. The difficulty is when you first start, where do you go with what you have, And all I can say to students is, make sure firstly that you get your degree, do well. You really need to do well because it's a very competitive market. And for example, even to get in to do accounting, they're looking for people with high degrees now to get in to do it. And by the way, just to reemphasize, you don't have to have an accounting degree to get in to do accounting. You can have any other degree if you wanted to. And I think I may have mentioned at some point to someone that some of the best graduates for accountancy, this is something from the Institute, I think, of Chartered Accountants a few years ago, said that the best graduates are the people who did not have a business degree in the sense of being either an accountancy degree or having mathematics or economics. Anyone can come in, and as long as you have a mindset that is business minded and interested in people, then maybe you can find something that you can use for yourself. But it's not going to be easy, I have to say. Firstly, make sure you do well at to university and go in and take up courses that actually will enhance your degree. So, for example, if someone offers you, I don't know, electives of some sort that you might be interested in doing, which might be useful for you later on, then use those. Do a little bit of work experience, because employers are looking for work experience. If you have a language skill, use your language skills. In England, we're not very good, or in the UK, not very good with languages. But if you have that ability with languages, then you can certainly use it in business anywhere. And so there are opportunities, but you really have to look at yourself and say to yourself, what do I want? Where can I be happy? I may not be happy immediately in a job, but I can work towards it, which is effectively what I did as well. So, if you're confused at this stage, you're not on your own. Most of us have always been confused when being a degree at university in the first few years. So I'm afraid that's just real life, But there are opportunities, I think, and the world is expanding. And internationally, I think there are huge opportunities. But you have to find that just a little angle, that can get you into what you really want to do. So yeah, so it's a very positive environment. It's competitive, but very, very positive, I think.
I want to thank you for such an insightful conversation about accounting. And thank you very much for doing this recording with me.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.